Hello, everyone, and welcome to the AFL Draft Night 2 recap. The National Draft for 2023 is done and dusted. Now, as I did last one, if you haven't checked out Night 1's video for the first 29 picks, go and check that out. But tonight, on this video, I'll solely be talking about the picks all for tonight. I'll do a club-by-club review tomorrow on the channel. This will be, as I said, solely for the picks tonight. So if you want to hear about Night 1, go watch that video. If you want to hear a whole full club-by-club one, that's for tomorrow night. But in the meantime, let's go through Night 2. Remember to smash the like button and subscribe if you haven't already. Obviously, there was some pick swaps and everything like that. There weren't major pick swaps tonight, like there was no future firsts or future seconds involved. So I'm not going to go through those trades and what they were. They were really minor ones, like swaps with clubs or like future thirds and fours, so picks in the 30 to 50 range. So I'm not going to go through those in particular, but there was nothing that struck out that were major differences there. So basically slide picks, go back a couple, gain a few up, and get like a future fourth for going up or for going down. So really minor ones there. So we'll start off with the first pick of the night, which technically started round 2, which was with the Eagles, and clubs were interested in taking the pick 30. The Eagles selected, and they selected Archer Reid, key forward from Victoria. I mean, there was a few other players that thought they could have gone local. They could have gone to Mitch Edwards, the young ruck from WA, 206-centimetre ruckman, but they didn't. They went with the key forward in Archer Reid. They have got Harley Reid. They've now got 2 Reids at the Eagles in now Archer Reid, key forward. Pick 31, the Brisbane Lions then selected medium-sized forward from Victoria, Logan Morris. Collingwood obviously were linked to him, but he ended up going to the Brisbane Lions. With pick 32, one of the steals of this night, Mitch Edwards from WA, the young ruck, probably the second best ruck in this competition. When is the 4th best ruck? And he's gone to Geelong. They're pretty good steal for Geelong. They picked a few clubs like St Kilda and Cullen who were just after them. They were showing some interest in him, so they got the second best young ruck in the competition or through this year's draft. So good on. They had a decent night, Geelong, which we'll have to get to that shortly, and I'll do that in the full recap tomorrow. Geelong went one up on St Kilda, and St Kilda went one back on them, picking a Geelong Falcon at pick 33. The Saints selected Angus Hasty, a running halfback. Is good kick and can run an average over 20 disposals for the Geelong Falcons in the Coates League. Was their best player in the competition. So good pick up there for the Saints, and it helps, adding with Jack Sinclair, Brad Hill, Malira, depending if they can play wing or halfback. You can add some competition in that position. At pick 34, Carlton selected wingman from Victoria, Billy Wilson. They don't really need pure mids, so they've gone for some run and speed, and the winger is Billy Wilson. Now, at pick 35, after training with Richmond, Fremantle selected Cooper Simpson. Obviously, we're out on the pockets earlier in the year from Victoria. Good player will be a good pick up for the Dockers. Can play through the wing, midfield, and half forward. And the Dockers do probably need a bit of versatility in their team, and Cooper Simpson can provide that. And he was injured throughout the year, played in the back end, and performed well for the Dandenong Stingrays. Now, as I said, I'm going to say this a few times throughout this video, there's a few steals, and Geelong do feature in a few of them, as I've just mentioned already with Mitch Edwards. The next one Geelong stole, and it was the mature age player of this year's draft, Sean Manor from Werribee in the VFL. Now, people always will remember, and this is probably what solidified Geelong selecting him, but I'm sure this individual game wouldn't have been the only reason why they picked him up. But Sean Manor for Werribee in the VFL, he's 26 years old. He kicked 7 goals and 30 disposals in the grand final against the Gold Coast Suns, who had all AFL-affiliated players. Killed at that game, was the best on ground in the losing effort by 10 points or whatever it was. But throughout the year, I think Sean Manor, off the top of my head, kicked around 30-odd goals, averaging over 20 disposals a game, was a goal kicker. He single-handedly, along with a few other Werribee teammates, won the game week in and week out, and that's why they got to a grand final through efforts like Sean Manor did. And at pick 36, when the draft's a bit even, this is another steal in this year's draft, and Geelong are 2 of the few steals of this night Geelong were a part of, so a great selection for them. And they do need some more midfield depth. Obviously, they've been exposed in that area recently, Selwood retiring, and Jack Bowes and Tanner Bruin being inconsistent and fringe-type players. he might be in that similar position, but he'd be a bit more reliable, and he's got the runs on the board in terms of experience as well. Pick 37, Collingwood selected 2, Giath. Hawthorn, if he was after pick 40, Hawthorn would be able to take him. So Collingwood pipped the Hawks by 3 picks. The Hawks will be disappointed. Two does not join his brother CJ, but a running halfback just like his brother. He will join the Pies, and they grew up being a Collingwood fan. Interesting selection though for the Pies. Pick 38, West Coast after doing a trade with Richmond. So Richmond went back twice because obviously they didn't feel that there was no one. They were desperate to get some more future picks in by sliding back a couple of spots, and they did that twice. Clay Hall, the Eagles selected with pick 38, a defender, medium-sized defender. West Coast do need some help up there. He's local, so you really have no factor to worry about him leaving the state. And could be a handy player considering West Coast have a few veteran players in that backline. Obviously, former skipper Shannon Hearn recently retiring as well. At pick 30, now you're talking about a club stealing last second. Lamar Loyal from Victoria, running halfback as well, who was tied to the Bulldogs. If he had gotten past one more pick, and the Bulldogs would have been able to match. So they'll be pissed off. Dodoro doing what Dodoro does, breaking hearts of somebody. He does it every year. He did it with a player that was linked to Hawthorn a couple of years ago, and he's done it again in what will be his last official role of being the list boss at the Bombers. And he went out on a bang doing that, and he did something good later on as well. But yeah, running halfback, they've stolen off the Bulldogs. Who obviously won't be too happy there. 1 pick away from taking him. They were the Bulldogs. And Essendon do need some, outside of Redmond, their back line is not the greatest, so he could provide some run off that half back line as well. Now, Richmond officially took their first pick at pick 40, Kane McAuliffe from South Australia, North Adelaide midfielder, 18-year-old, 187 centimetre mid, inside mid. Yeah, they've gone for a few SA guys, which we'll get to shortly. But yeah, there's a few other options. I thought they missed out on Archery as a key forward they'd be pissed off about, but then I thought Ollie Murphy, key defender, played 2 positions they need to fill, and they didn't go for him. And they went Kane McCall for another mid, which they do need midfielders as well. But I would have thought key position was more of a priority there, but I guess not. Speaking of Ollie Murphy at pick 41, the Dockers selected with their first pick, Ollie Murphy. Now you can see the project play 200 centimetre from the Sandringham Dragon, key defender. Will take time, which it kind of makes sense. But Fremantle, probably not the club to have made this move. They've got Fremantle's best position at the club is their defence. Luke Ryan, Alex Pearce, Brennan Cox, Luke Ryan. I mentioned Alex Pearce, I think, and then you got some running halfbacks as well. So Nathan O'Driscoll can play there. There's any other players that can push through there as well. So I would have thought that area is the area that they didn't need to bolster. I mean, he could have been a top 20 pick. So, I mean, I suppose they probably saw what I have and they're like, well, we can't just let him slide this far. It may not have been a priority, but just can't let him keep going down. We can get him for nothing basically now. So I'm going to assume that's why they took him, because they definitely don't need options in that area as a priority. At pick 42, the Brisbane Lions selected Luke Lloyd from Victoria, medium-sized forward. Like Collingwood, they're looking for these type of players, and they selected Luke Lloyd. At pick 43, the Tigers selected Liam Fourcott from Adelaide as well, a key forward. So they got one, and he'll provide an option up there, along with Jacob Kaczynski and Tom Lynch if they need be, and Noah Cumberland. Pick 44, the Giants selected Joseph Fonte, can play as a medium forward. Probably won't get a game straight away, but they've got some options there if there is to be some injuries. At pick 45, the Western Bulldogs selected from Victoria medium-sized forward wingman, Joel Fraser from Victoria. The Bulldogs obviously earlier, they picked Riley Sanders in the first night, so they've kind of another midfield type there. At pick 46, the Hawks selected Bodie Ryan, the brother of Jacob Ryan from the Pies. They selected him for the Hawks. Very similar to his brother. He's very raw, but very tall and skinny mid defender. Plays similar to his brother. He actually matched up on Harley Reid throughout the national championships. Had 3 goals kicked on him in the first 10 minutes of the game. And then after that game, quelled the influence of Harley Reid that game. And you heard that on the coverage if you listened to it as well. Pick 47, the Bulldogs selected Lachlan Smith, a ruckman from the Gippsland Power. Now, you're probably wondering, and this is probably one of the interesting selections of the draft for a whole different reason than you may think, is this them trying to cover their bases for the potential loss of Tim English? Now, you're probably saying, well, he's not going to get a game. No, he won't. He's a project ruckman too. They're like, you can say, oh, Jordan Sweet left. He's only depth option. They're covering that depth. Well, they've got other options in that space. They've got a bunch of key forwards that can pinch it in the ruck. So I feel this is at least they're showing some concern of Tim English not re-signing. Now, it doesn't mean he's not staying in the Bulldogs, but obviously they've got that doubt and they're trying to cover their bases if English was to leave and not have to leave the last second in next year's trade period if he does leave. So a bit of watch space on this one. I found this very interesting because they don't need more tall players. They've got plenty lob. You've got Hagan, Sam Darcy can play as a backup ruck. There's other options there. So Aaron Norton. So yeah, it's very interesting to see what they've done there. At pick 48, I've tried to do some practicing on this name from the Geelong Falcons at Port Adelaide. Picked a pick 48, Thomas Andastopoulos. I think I got that right. That was good enough. Tom from the Geelong Falcons, a midfielder. Had a good year for them with the Falcons. Outside of Angus Heist, he was one of the next best Geelong Falcons players to pick from. And Port Adelaide at 48, this is their first pick of the night. So a solid play from the Falcons there. At pick 49, the West Coast Eagles selected Harvey Johnston from the Sandringham Dragons. A lot of Sandy Dragons players. You know, when I had their coach on, Mark Wheeler, they seem to dominate in the men's and women's competitions about players getting drafted continuously each year and why they're so strong and playing in the premiership and winning at premierships. It's why they're so good. And Harvey Johnston is one of them. Played for the St Kilda VFL side Sandringham Zebras for a couple of games late in the year, around 18 and 19. Did okay there. Hit a goal in the last game he played. He play wing, plays a small forward as well. The Eagles need some of those versatility players as well. It's a good pickup there. At pick 50, the Saints selected Hugo Garcia. Now, I'd be lying to you if I knew a lot about him, even the coverage didn't really know much about him. He is from South Australia, a good player. Not from South Australia, from Victoria. They can play through the midfield, plays a forward, a bit of spark as well. If you add to Lance Collard we added last night, could be a handy play for the future. Obviously, won't be one that gets picked straight away, but from all reports, he seems to be a very good player and could be a good one for the future. And I mean, pick in the 50s, so bit of hit and miss. Hopefully, it goes well for Hugo Garcia. Pick 51, the Brisbane Lions selected tall from WA, Zane Zakostowski. Hopefully, I got that one right as well. Key position player from Perth, as I mentioned. Was linked around West Coast at the start of this night at pick 30. He slid all the way as well. A good pickup for the Brisbane Lions. Add some more tall depth. Obviously, he'll be a future player for them. Obviously, you still got Hipwood and Danaher and co. And then the back line, you still got Jack Payne, Darcy Gardner, Harris Andrews. So he'll be a project player for them, but they need some options when a few of those other guys start to move on. Now, there's maybe a bit of bias in this one. About pick 52, the Port Adelaide Footy Club selected Lockie Charlson. Now, if you all remember, I did a Gold King challenge with Lockie a few months ago. His name got mentioned a lot around that time I had him on when he kicked 8 goals for the Rebels in the Coates League, and then he backed it up with a couple of 4-goal performances. So maybe for Locke to get an opportunity at the Power, obviously he was linked to both WA clubs and the Power, and it was good to see him get a go there, and I'm sure to Ken Hinkley, we're fun with Lockie Charlson up in that form. If he was to get a game, loves a goal as well, as you can tell in our goal kicking challenge. At pick 53, the Swans selected Patrick Snell from South Australia. A bit of an unknown as well. Sometimes these players can be the ones that sometimes can do better than the ones that are expected to do well. Can fly under the radar a little bit. So here's one, Patrick Snell for the Swans. Pick 54, one of the big sliders as well is Archie Roberts, the Bombers selected with pick 54. I mean, good selection for them. A guy that was picked, and some fandom drafts had him around in the 20s, as high as 15, I'd seen at some point throughout the last month or so. So great pickup for the Bombers from Victoria as well. Another Sandringham player, Sandringham Dragon. That is, as I said, they keep producing names that get drafted every single year, and that's why they're so strong and good. As you heard in all the people I've had on from Sandy Dragons, and they explain why their club is so strong and good and successful for year in and year out. So that's Bombers Archie Roberts, who play through the midfield and forward line as well. pick 55, the Western Bulldogs selected Aidan O'Driscoll, the brother of Emma O'Driscoll from the Dockers AFLW side, and Nathan O'Driscoll, who I mentioned before, from the Dockers men's side as well. So their brother is off to the Bulldogs, a small forward that can run. It'll be a handy selection for them. Obviously, still got Cody Waitman. They did not select Nick Watson, so they got a small forward option there in Aidan O'Driscoll. At pick 56, the Hawks selected father-son prospect Kalsha Dia, a key position player. The Hawks do need some options there, so you can see how he goes. But again, he'll be a project player. Pick 57, the Port Adelaide Footy Club selected Will Lorenz from Victoria as well. Handy player who was probably touted at some point in the start of the second round. So just not so much lately, but about a month or two ago, it was linked around the 20s range. So the Port could say it was a bit of a steal for them, but there is some few more big steals. I mentioned a few earlier. There's a few more I'm about to bring up, and one is right now. And at pick 58, Geelong, again, got another steal and selected from the Rebels, George Stevens, who played for the VFL Geelong side for a few games, an inside bull, 100-kilo midfielder. You're talking about beasts like Oliver and co. He plays a similar style of footy as well, and he racks up possessions as well, like Oliver and that did in their draft years, and now they still do in AFL. That could be a real steal. Geelong have stolen this draft a lot with Mitch Edwards and Mitch Edwards as well, and Sean Manor, that's the other one. And now with George Stevens. So they've done pretty well. Now the next selection at pick 59, the Giants have selected academy player Harvey Thomas, a midfielder, can play through the forward line. He's got a bit of speed about him. Obviously, he won't be one that gets a game regularly, but if required upon, he could be a handy player at least to start off. He won't get a game because he's got names called Toby Green and Brent Daniels and Toby Bedford ahead of him. But regardless, good option for the Giants if need be. At pick 60, Fremantle selected SA forward Jack Deline. Taller type. They say he can play as a small forward, but he's taller than people's thinking about, in the 185 centimetre range, I think. So will be a handy player for the Dockers if called upon as well. So he'll be a good pick-up for them, you would think, and a bit of a hit and miss at pick 60. Now, at pick 61, this is probably the shock of the draft. Last night it was Oscar Ryan getting picked up at 27 by the Crows, and this time it's Oliver Wiltshire for Geelong at pick 61. Coincidentally, Geelong might pick in Geelong Falcons. A former Geelong Falcon, he's 21 years of age, actually plays in the Ballerine Footy League, in the BFL League in Geelong for the Barwon Heads Footy Club. A bit of an unknown option. I mean, even the commentary had no idea who he was outside of knowing where he was from. Obviously, the Falcons and that have posted up before. He's kicked 51 goals this year for the Barwon Heads Footy Club, who are always a strong club in the Ballerine League. So if he kicked one goal, I think one game kicked 12 goals against Motta Warriors. So obviously he's a goal kicker, and again, bit of hit and miss. I mean, Geelong have been known to do things like this with a pick Tom Stewart from South Barwon in the GFL League in Geelong as well. I mean, I'm not saying it's going to be anything like that at all. I'm not saying that at all. Might not even be one that gets a game, but to get an opportunity is a good thing to show that they still do watch local footy as well, and especially Geelong do in the Geelong leagues. Tom Stewart is a prime example, as I said. Now, this one I am deeming the steal of the entire draft, purely for the fact of where it was ranked. Now, I just gave those Geelong names, and they are steals. And overall, as every club involved, they probably had the most quantity of steals. But the best individual steal of this year's draft at pick 62 was for the Saints, and it's Ari Schoenmaker from Tasmania, booming left foot kick. He was in the Fox Footy's longest kick, 194 centimetre booming left foot kick from Tasmania. He was linked as early as a pick in the 15 range. And then he kept floating down the order. And I was watching him going, St Kilda were looking at him at our second pick, which was the one that we picked Lance Collard with. I'm like, oh, okay. North Melbourne in those picks around, they had those consecutive picks in a row, or 3 and 4 picks. Thought, oh, well, they'll take him. They didn't. And then he just kept sliding on the second night, you know. He was talked about even as early as this morning. Clubs articles were saying that, of the clubs at the start of the second round, like West Coast, Brisbane, St Kilda, Carlton, we're going, oh, yeah, he'll probably be in those first 4 or 5 picks. And he just kept going down and down. And then St Kilda picked Hugo Garcia at 50. And I'm thinking, well, Showmaker's still there. Why the hell have you not grabbed him? And then I thought, well, we're going to miss out now. And then you go about 10, in fact, 12 picks later, and he's still not picked up. So the Saints were not going to use 5 picks. So they originally said they'll probably use 4 picks and ended up using a 5th because he was just too good to refuse. Ari Showmaker, the steal of this year's entire draft. A guy that, as I said, touted so early and gotten at the very, very end. So an absolute steal. And he's a booming left foot kick. And in the commentary, you heard them say he can kick 60 to 65 meters very easily. And if there's one thing the Saints have not had for a while, it is players that can actually kick far. There's a lot of St Kilda players in the last few years in particular have rarely been able to hit over 50 meters consistently. The last player I can remember at the Saints that could kick over 50 meters consistently was Shane Savage and Brendan Goddard's and Nick Del Santo and Joey Montagna, and they've been gone for a while. Most of those guys have. So it's good to have someone that can actually kick a long distance, and he's very an accurate kick as well. So Ari Showmaker for the Saints at pick 62, this year's steal of the draft. Now the next few picks, final few picks at pick 63 for Geelong, Lawson Humphreys from the Waffle, 20-year-old utility. Again, Geelong, they like getting unknown guys, and sometimes they work, sometimes they don't. And at a pick 63, it can be a hit and miss and see what goes there. And the final pick of the night 2 draft was Reece Torrent from South Australia, selected at pick 64 for the Brisbane Lions. Again, an unknown type from South Australia. Again, it might be a guy that gets a game regularly, but if relied upon, could be a fine option there. So comment down below your thoughts of your club's draft period. Tomorrow, I will do, we've obviously got the rookie draft, so well after that rookie draft at 3 p.m. Vic time is done, I'll record a full club-by-club review, and I'll tell you which clubs won the draft, the steals of the draft. I kind of just hinted at them there and said some. But as an overall, I'll do which clubs won. I'll give it like a ranking out of 10 or something like that, and we'll go through each club's and which ones may play round 1 or early on in the season. And yeah, just go overall how they went, which clubs disappointed. You can tell from some of my wording here who will feature up there. But we'll have to wait and see. Yesterday's picks, they were also impacted overall. So got to take that into account. Thank you for watching this video. Subscribe if you haven't already. Hit the like button. There'll be more interviews and draft content to come still, even with the draft being pretty much completed now. Go Saints.